Let's talk about the world of AI and education. My guest in the studio, Emeka Obiwulu, the CEO and founder of the Offshore Lab, joins me to discuss a couple of issues. Good morning. Great to have you. Let's have this for a Friday. It's a TGIF.
Thank you for having me.
What is the story about a university student demanding her money back because the professor used artificial intelligence to prepare his lecture notes? What happened? What do you make of that?
So what happened here? The rules were switched here. It's typically the student, exactly the professor who's accusing students for using ChatGPT. But what happened here? This senior who graduated from university asked for her school fees back because she found out that her professor was creating lecture notes with artificial intelligence. And what do I make of it? I think it's a mirror reflective of a lot of conversations, trust conversations happening in many rooms today. You know, I pick up a report, I'm looking at an email and I'm asking, is this Bosun speaking? Is this original thoughts? Or is this generative AI prompted in here? And it sounds like something out of a movie, but it's very real. You know, in this case in particular, it's just a flashpoint of the deepening tension artificial intelligence has introduced to education and the classroom.
So the student, and that's an image, saying, look, I thought my professor, my lecturer will be setting questions in the lecture notes based on his knowledge because he's a professor. And when you're a professor, you're not a professor because you use ChatGPT, you're a professor because you've got a whole mountain of research work that you can defend at any point in time. But the students I felt so bad. So is this a pushback against AI as we know it?
I think we should be a bit careful here, and I want us to look at it in three categories. The technology itself, humanities, and change management, right? And in this case, when this girl paid for her fees for university, she signed a social contract with the university. And what she was expecting was a level of mentorship, not getting content, but context, lived experience. And when she actually goes through that experience and finds out at the end of it, she's questioning, did I get all of these things? Is it really the context I paid for? You know, when you graduate a student and say character and learning, you graduated in character and learning, you're not just talking about handing them content. It's a whole lot of wider issue in that cocktail. So when she gets frustrated on the back of that social contract being broken, it's like a breach of trust in that context. And when it doesn't help at all when the university in itself does not have a balanced ethical framework where it's rigid with the students, do not use this technology in your report, and it doesn't share the same with the lecturers. So there is that perceived aggression. There's when she goes out and vents that frustration, it's not exactly about the technology.
It's got to be about a level playing field.
Correct. So when we step into where we are today with artificial intelligence, you know, in almost every space and almost every sphere, we've almost walked into or started a journey without all of our safety signs, without all of our maps in there, and we have all of these blind spots, and these things are bound to happen.
Popping up.
Yes, but when they do happen, we have to be very deliberate about finding lasting solutions to them. And in this case, what do I think? I don't really think it's so much about the technology as much as the context and what the student thought she bargained for, hence her frustration.
So in what best ways do you think we can deploy technology to support education, especially in conflict-affected areas or underserved communities as we have in Nigeria and across many countries in Africa?
That's a very interesting question because this is something we've spent some time at the Offshore Lab dealing with. I think first and foremost, very concisely, when you deploy technologies there, they have to be simplified as much as possible. They have to be independent as much as possible. And I'll give you a typical example of a simplified, independent technology here. On 27th of May, Children's Day, we will be at an IDP camp launching for the first time an initiative called Schoolbox. Right? Schoolbox is all about recycling shipping containers and turning them into classrooms, ICT labs, and wash facilities. And we take them into these areas that education has been disrupted. In some of these camps, these kids who were born there haven't seen classrooms and they're getting into secondary school ages. And you're looking at
Go ahead,
Yes,
because
and
you're touching a nerve here.
and you're looking at how do we democratize education to get into these remote areas.
And that's where I'm going. How do we democratize education? Hold on a second. When everyone has a sense in Nigeria and say, I got some millions of naira, whatever, I want to set up a private school. The first thing is how to get a 3-bedroom apartment, whitewash it, whatever, and say, I'm also contributing to education. With a number of out-of-school students and technology and mobile phones almost in everybody's front, back pocket, as it were, can we begin to have some form of out-of-school education that is not typically based on a brick and mortar structure?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So we're
to
talking
provide
about
basic education.
Yes, and I'm happy with your energy around that.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of a solution.
Yes, we're talking about an entire national economy when you look at the numbers. There are 10.5 million plus out of school. You know, you look at
the size of a country.
Exactly, and you look at about 22 million plus underemployed or unemployed, and our industry is starving. You know, that's the paradox of it all. We don't have that pipeline of talent that's giving us what the market needs. And at the other side, we have probably one of the largest youth population in the world. Yes, 70% under 25. You know, under 30, we have 70% under 30, and we have about 115 plus million people who are under 25. And we can't support our markets. We can't feed our people. You have to agree with me that every unskilled and uneducated Nigerian is a lost opportunity. Every single one. It's a lost opportunity to grow our food, to build our infrastructure, to power our industry.
Tax revenue.
Correct. So what you're asking is, how do we expand this net now to plow in all of these individuals who are currently out of school and who are currently out of reach, to turn them into natural resources as well. And part of what of that we talked about is that school box. So we are going into all of these remote areas who are completely bereft of these opportunities typically, and they're not in these conversations, and trying to democratize that education by using technology to take education and learning to where infrastructure can't go. So these mobile containers are recycled shipping containers that have been equipped with learning materials, classroom tools, solar powered, all of what you need for dignified learning, and are readily available within 10 to 14 days within any part of the country.
Where did I hear this first? In Mexico, 2007.
Okay.
And they call it this mobile school in Mexico. You know, they've got this huge population like Nigeria, and they have these mobile schools on trailers that move into very remote areas. And I'm thinking about Borno State, for example. And I'm thinking of states in Nigeria where you have internally displaced. As a journalist, been to one or two of those big camps, like the Bakassi IDP camp in Borno, for example, in Maiduguri. And you see hundreds and hundreds of kids with UNICEF and others trying to provide some little things on ground, and we thank them for what they're doing. But again, we can have these homegrown solutions, like you said, this mobile school that we can take to them.
Yes, and the infrastructure is the first part of it. You know, so we have built this infrastructure that creates an environment for dignified learning. And in this test case, it's the first time we're deploying it at the offshore lab, and it's going to be on the 27th when we launch it on the Children's Day. Now, a lot of the work when you talk about our context is, you know, it's one thing Mexico's done it or whoever's done it, but within our context, what are our real problems? And even within our context as a nation, within the camp you're taking it, what is the problem there? We have to make that technology meet those kids where they are for it to be meaningful. And then we need to get that stakeholder buy-in. We're not taking people to go in there and to teach them. We're actually going to have to train locals so that there is that buy-in into getting that done. So there is a lot of work doing that. And then we have to align it with curriculum to make it a permanent solution. So we have to get all of these things done that it's not happening in Mexico or anywhere else, but within our own context. So as part of that solution, it has to be very holistic. It has to be the infrastructure, it has to be soft elements of it, it has to be stakeholder management, just everything that you need to do for project delivery to be efficient, and it has to be very, very sustainable as well.
Interesting how you're getting the government side buying into this, or be part of this, as the case may be.
Yeah, I think...
Or is it 100% private sector led, end to end?
So I think you always have to get the stakeholder buy-in, right? When you're talking about a state-owned facility, when you're talking about where you have heavy government participation, you need to get the government buying into it. Now, the part you may be asking questions about is the funding, and the private sector has a strong role to play here. So if it comes to that other side of it, we can define, right, the processes, the funding, the infrastructure can be private sector driven, right? While the government just provides you the enabling environment, which is typically what they should, provide the enabling environment, the stakeholder management, and the security. And that's the level of synergy and collaboration that you need to deploy something like this successfully.
Great. So when you folks put boots on the ground for these, you want the Borno State government to provide some security to allow you get to do what you need to do.
I haven't said it's Borno, by the way, yet. I haven't called the state where it is.
I can smell where you're going. I can smell. Just stick around where you're going. I have an idea. Because, again, whether we like it or not, that's one part of the country that suffered so much. That axis, the last 10, 12 years, 15 years, hadn't really been nice to folks in that region. And we should just be very honest here. They've seen the brutal side of life. And a few days I spent on the ground there, and I wouldn't want to relieve my experience, bringing out 1,000 Naira note, a clean note, at the IDP camp. I wouldn't want to tell you what happened, almost happened to me. Life really hard on the ground. So they need all the help they can get. And if some of us here can do that, that would be really good. But again, to begin to summarize, what does a truly dignified learning environment look like for children in a crisis-setting arena or area?
I will say, yes, crisis-setting, but I'll be careful not to limit all of it to just the crisis-setting areas. There are a lot of disadvantaged demographics, right? And dignified learning should uniformly apply to all of these areas. Okay. And how do I say it? I look at it as safety, right? I look at it as a clean space, a clean learning environment. I look at it as a kid feeling seen. I'm not just part of a statistic. I am being called my name. I have a clean wash area. So these things mean a whole lot for people who have been exposed to the sharpest ends of humanity, people who probably watch themselves lose family, and you're talking about learning and teaching them. So there's a very big psychological divide in there and a lot of journey to be walked through to get to reach them where they are and get them moving on that journey. So those very basic things we'll take for granted, like we just said about being seen, clean space, clean learning, motivating, inspiring space, clean toilets, hygiene, for girls.
You get the real content that allows you to assimilate the real content.
Yes,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Emeka Obiwulu. We appreciate what you're doing on the ground and your team. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend. We appreciate Emeka Obiwulu of the Offshore Lab.